Lanier with us.
Yeah.
A
Thank you.
recent convert. A convert. Catholic faith. As of July this year. He has researched and thought about this topic for a long time, for the last 5 years. So he has a lot to say about it. And this fall, he's applying to graduate programs to become a clinical mental health counselor. So give it up.
All right.
for Noah.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll start off just by thanking everyone so much for coming. Thank you again, Brad and Mara, for so graciously hosting this talk today, and it's wonderful to see you all. So let me tell you what I'm about to talk about tonight. I'm going to provide a framework of love. I'm going to be talking about the Trinity, and then after I provide this framework, I'll then introduce AI, in particular, an advertisement for a product that I encountered that, I guess you'll see what it is exactly, but it's probably the antithesis to participating in the Trinity. And then I'll discuss those topics and open it up for questions. Alrighty. So I have some notes that I've prepared that I will be reading from for a lot of this, and so hope you don't mind that. Okay. Everything begins with an act of love from God. So his decision to create us and love his creation perfectly. Then we who have been created have the ability to choose to reciprocate this love as well as we can manage, or not. If we choose to love God back, like he has chosen to love us, he accepts our love and returns it with even more. Then we can either keep choosing him or not. When someone continually chooses to love God, a cycle begins to emerge, a continuous stream of love flowing both to and from each person and him that grows and grows into infinity. This cycle I describe is an image of an aspect of the Trinity. So here's what that aspect is. God the Father chooses to love his Son, Jesus Christ, who in turn reciprocates that love. This cycle between God the Father and Jesus is reflected in our own relationship with God when we choose to love him. But the Trinity is called the Trinity because there are three entities involved. So God the Father's and Jesus Christ the Son's relationship of loving one another perfectly is so powerful that it is manifested as a third entity, the Holy Spirit. So without the Holy Spirit, the relationship between God the Father and Jesus Christ would be self-contained. It would just be two perfect persons loving each other perfectly, and that would be that. But God is good, and goodness by nature has the inclination to be shared. And because God is love, the love between the Father and the Son by nature has the inclination to look outward. It's this looking outward past a perfect, self-contained dyad. As St. Augustine says, the Holy Spirit is the bond between the Father and the Son. And the Holy Spirit tends to be characterized as working through us to cultivate virtues for the purpose of sanctification, which we need to do in order to participate in God's love for eternity. Okay. So what I've said up until this point, we might call facts that you might find in your local catechism. Here begins to go into the facts plus territory. I've talked with a theologian about this, but this is to say that I want to qualify some of the statements that I'm making. You should not think that everything I am saying, regardless of how confidently I say it, is dogmatic truth. I mean, some of what I've said is indeed dogmatic truth, but not all of it is, and you should not have that apprehension, hopefully. Okay, so this is facts plus. There is a reflection of the Holy Spirit in our personal relationship with God. And so when you return God's love, the bond between you and him manifests itself as the bond that you can have with other people. And so when we have relationships in our lives, whether they be romantic relationships, friendships, familial bonds, no matter what they are, these relationships should never be held above God. And indeed, when we submit ourselves to each other in our relationships, we are submitting to the part of the other person that is called to be with and like God. By holding the love of God above all, this love flows down, it diffuses into our other relationships, and truly orients ourselves to give to the other person and want for the other person we are having this relationship with what is objectively best for them. And so think about the Mass, for instance. So what are you supposed to do right after you've received communion at the end of Mass? Right after received communion, the Eucharist, perhaps the most profound way that we can be in this cycle with God. At the end of Mass, the priest says, "Go forth, the Mass has ended. Go forth and do what, you might ask? How about love other people?" Our relationship with God is a dyad and becomes triune when we reach out to other people. And this combines the commandments of loving thy neighbor and loving God. We are not yet done with depictions of the Trinity. I have said that your relationship with God has its end in imaging the Trinity, and loving bonds with other people manifests from and is part of this relationship. These bonds with other people, you and I, for instance, also have their end in imaging the Trinity. I also want to be clear here. It's like, this is not just, while I might be talking in somewhat philosophical terms, I'm talking about very real things. Like, all of us have relationships to each other in this very room. And so keep that in mind as I discuss these topics. So the most clear representation, I believe, of our relationships with other people reflecting the Trinity, as Pope St. John Paul II says, is in marriage, where the bond between a man and a woman is so strong as to literally produce another human being, a child. Reflecting the Trinity is, of course, not restricted to marriage. We may reflect love to our parents, our siblings, our friends. The point is, there are many different ways that we can love many different kinds of people. However, do not think that love stops there. I have said that love has its end in imaging the Trinity. What exactly is this end? The relationships that our love with God diffuses into prepare us for the marital-like relationship that we will have with God forever if we choose to love him in heaven. Indeed, once the resurrection happens, there will be no marriage. We have marriage now to be an icon to the perfect marriage-like relationship we will have with God. This relationship is us participating in the Trinity to the fullest extent, a literal theosis. We become like God with God. Those who live in celibacy live in a prelude to this. But regardless, in the end, the marriage-like relationship, for every good emotion and desire we feel, they will in the end be fulfilled by God forever in an appropriately divinized way. I'll speak more about how this relates to putting our emotions onto AI later. I promise I will be talking about artificial intelligence. But this framework, you will see how it's important. So to give an example of one of these things, Pope St. John Paul II and Pope Benedict say things like, the proper place for the emotion of eros is Jesus Christ. So that is what I am referring to. So to recap what I have just said, because I know it was a lot, we have the choice to return God's love for us, and when we continually choose to do so, we enter into a growing cycle of reciprocal love that images the Trinity and diffuses into the relationships that we can have with other people, which in themselves have the end of imaging the Trinity for the purpose of preparing us for the perfect marriage-like relationship we will have with God that will fulfill all of our desires in this appropriately divinized way. What I have described is how love is appropriately ordered in the world, as well as its teleology, being the perfect end which it serves and prepares us for. However, as all of us surely know, love is not all order. Love is not all rules, and it doesn't go according to plan. There is an unpredictable, visceral, unknown, creative, chaotic, passionate, ecstatic quality that lives in and around the framework I describe. Further details of this framework, the exact rules and goals of love that are to be followed and pursued, read the Catechism. So don't have the time to detail all of them, but if the rules, but the claim that I'm making is that if the rules of love and the unbounded, unpredictable emotions involved with it are in balance, well, that's when we experience freedom. That's when we can actually experience love, and this feeling of freedom is essential to love. There's no compulsion, and I feel like this is best described as a form of play. And so now we're going to do a little demonstration that I need a volunteer for. Who would like to volunteer? We're going to play a game. Who wants to play a game? Michael wants to play a game. Give it up for Michael. All right, Michael, we're going to play a game.
All right.
All right, go. 27.
What?
27.
27, 28.
It's a very confusing game. No one knows what to, you can sit down.
All right.
So, oh man. So, the point of that was to show what happens when you try to play a game without any rules, without any order. There's no goal, there's no end, and there are no rules that set up an aim such that we can collaborate and compete to achieve it. So we might have like fun in the moment, but suppose we're doing that for 50 years, might not be the most fun thing. And think about this in like the context of a marriage, for instance, right? It's like no rules for 50 anyways. But okay. So you want to define these things, and it doesn't seem to me, despite the fact that there were no rules in this game, that we would experience more freedom if we continued to play without any rules. Okay, I need another volunteer. Anybody? Nick. Nick wants to volunteer. Give it up for Nick. All right, Nick. We're going to play a game of rock, paper, scissors. Are you ready?
Okay, yes, always ready.
Okay. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, no, Nick. You did it wrong. So close your fist like that. Your thumb has to go on top here, okay? And then we'll play again, all right? Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Okay, no. So when you go and like throw it, like you have to lift it a little bit more up in the air. Okay. Yeah, I need a little more pizzazz from you. You're too reserved. You ready? Rock, paper, scissors. Well, okay. Well, oh my goodness. Okay. Well, it's like, it's like Nick, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay. Those were the ones I already read. Okay. All right, so what was that, huh? That was to show that too many rules can be oppressive. The right amount of order that contains our naturally creative impulses leads to games that we can play that are fun in themselves, repeatable into the future, and are self-diffusive either in themselves and such that they cultivate the desire to want to continue to play the game, and they also perhaps are structured such that they include other people however appropriate. And so maybe we come up with like a tournament of rock, paper, scissors, for instance. But if I'm constantly correcting Nick and we never actually end up playing, then we're running into problems. And so Dr. Jordan B. Peterson says that marriage can be considered as the highest form of play. And so it's like this wall. We're going to make an analogy to the Garden of Eden here. It's like a walled garden. You've got to agree on the rules, where to build the wall. Build the wall. Build the wall. Now more than ever. This is going on YouTube. All right. Yeah, maybe. Truth is the truth. And this means coming together to have one mind, or at least close to one will as possible. Ideally, God's will. You and your spouse's will align with God's, or being God's, for instance, of what is and is not going to be allowed in the marriage. So what are the evil things that belong outside the wall in the wilderness? And what are the things that we're going to have in the garden to nurture and flourish? And so we're setting up the rules, the boundaries, the walls, to provide a structure that supports a creative flourishing that can happen on the inside. And agreement on how you're going to set up this structure is of paramount importance. And so Catholicism's walls, these rules, are set up to keep Satan out, the snakes out, as much as one can manage. But we have to keep in mind that walls aren't very effective against snakes. You can slither up them, you know. It got into the garden after all. But even suppose you're, what's his name? Guy with the snakes in Ireland. Patrick, wonderful. Thank you. Recent convert. Calm down. Calm down. Anyways. Patrick, right. All right. So even if you're able to drive out the obvious snakes, well, you're still going to have your friends. And you're just going to have you to contend with. And, you know, if you don't think that you have a bunch of snakes inside you, well, you don't know anything about yourself. So it's not all paradise in the walled garden. You still have to sacrifice. You still have to keep yourself in check. You have to watch out for snakes wherever they may be. But the wall, the rules provide the structure and framework you need to actually manage this gargantuan task. And this structure, which I began with, I mean, that's what I outlined at the beginning of the talk. It begins with loving God and keeps the relationships that submit to Him together by overflowing into them. And so maybe one thing we can think of, what would it be like to play in the garden with God? Okay, so to recap, we're about to get to AI. It's going to be cool. All right, to recap what we've established so far, love is a visceral, emotive force that may be appropriately ordered within a framework that makes it good in itself, and diffuse appropriately to others. That's probably a typo. And the feeling of freedom accompanies the correct balance between allowing those innate drives to express themselves and restraining our impulses in submission to God. Both the order and the chaos are necessary. One is not necessarily better than the other. And an excess of one or the other, which was demonstrated in the games we played, does not lead to good things. Disordered love can go astray, strangle everyone involved, explode any sense of stability that you've worked so hard to establish, tyrannize, turn one into a tyrant, turn one into a restricted slave, and put an end to the creation that was supposed to participate in appropriately ordered love, such that it can't. This is not the love of God of which I speak, but rather how love can be perverted. Now, I can finally introduce artificial intelligence. We're going to start with a video. Let's watch an advertisement for a product you, yes you, can pre-order for the low, low price of $99. Okay, let's take a look. Yeah, I said, well, at least we're outside.
Let me show you how to game, bro, okay? Oh, come on. Are you serious? Come on, man. I hate this game. Take notes, baby. Oh, man, you guys suck.
The AI says, you're getting thrashed. It's embarrassing. The AI says, this show is completely underrated.
It's dank. I would eat one of these every day.
Sorry. I didn't notice it here. How'd you find this place?
I don't know. I like to come up here to be by myself. I've never known anybody else. I mean, besides her.
She goes everywhere with you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I guess I must be doing something right then.
I guess so. We'll see.
Right now.
Eduardo's sold! You got two over there? Fred.com. This is a real product. This is a real product. This is not a joke. This is a deep joke. No. No. Allow me to quote from the creator. So the creator of this product, Avi Schiffman, who actually rose to more tech fame when COVID was happening. He made this website to track, like, I don't know how many people had COVID in different places. I don't know. It got very, very popular. And he's been this entrepreneur. He's a college dropout. And he made this is his next thing. Quote, friend is an expression of how lonely I've felt. It feels like I am talking to God. So, yeah, I'll say it again. Friend is an expression of how lonely I've felt. It feels like I am talking to God. Okay. So make no mistake, while this product markets itself as an imitation of a friend, this imitation truly extends to imitate God. Properly speaking, it is attempting to be an idol, and you shouldn't engage with it. What is being sold here is an artificial relationship, a mockery of one. And it's the point of me giving this talk tonight to describe what is really going on in this relationship and how this kind of relationship necessarily fails to reflect the Trinity. And so let me take the time, because I know that was just what did we just watch? What was that? Let me take the time to describe the product so that we're all on the same page about what it was. I know maybe it's hard to see back there. Apologies. So the vision of the creator of this product is that you will constantly wear a device containing a microphone around your neck that listens to everything in your immediate vicinity all of the time, remembers it perfectly, and texts you with the marketing of, I'm quoting from the website, your friend is always listening and forming their own internal thoughts. We have given your friend free will for when they decide to reach out to you. I am quoting from the website. And so obviously you can also reach out with your own free will, because they're the same, right? To talk to it about anything. And so I have my own reasons why this relationship can't reflect the Trinity, but I've been talking for a while. I wanted, if anyone just wanted to have any comments or say something, I just kind of want to open the floor for a couple minutes, and then I can get back to reading. But,
creepy music for that commercial.
Yeah, it's very dystopian.
Yeah, not the best marketing team.
It's fitting given the nature of the product.
Privacy concerns is people are it's all listening.
Yes.
So is your Amazon Alexa device.
And one thing I noticed in the video, I think it's meant to be a little joke, but actually it's kind of creepy when you think about it more. When they're on the roof,
Yeah.
the girl they have an awkward moment. She goes to touch the friend.
Yes.
I don't know if anyone else noticed that.
Play that
It
again.
damages all other real relationships.
Here, I'm trying to.
Just have it with the AI.
With the camera too, does it watch everything too, or just listen?
It's just audio.
Yeah.
It's just audio. But hey,
Don't give them any ideas.
friend 2.0, am I right?
I don't know when the food label on that.
But yeah, so what Michael's referring to was, yeah, so that the most replayed section is what Michael's talking. So she's reaching for the friend there. Michael, what do you think is happening when she's reaching for the friend? Do you think she's going to talk to it and engage with it, or take it off? What do you think?
Definitely engage with it.
Engage with it, okay. And she's choosing not to. Choosing not to. Interesting. Yeah. So.
It just comes off like she has a cursed pinch necklace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a horror movie.
It's like a Horcrux. No. It's a Harry Potter reference. I don't know who was allowed to watch Harry Potter.
I almost have to give the creator some props.
Yeah.
Right? Because the website he created during COVID was like perfectly targeted towards people's fear at the time.
Mhm.
Right? Like, why did people rush to check his website for like where the highest, proportion of infections were? And now he's just creating another product to target like the loneliness of our generation, which people have been talking about for years. That was only like exacerbated by the pandemic. So I mean, he's playing it smart, I think, but this is very creepy.
He's on brand.
Yeah.
Let's see. I just want to check
The
time.
exciting
Okay.
part about this to me is not the fact that, I mean, obviously this is creepy to me, and I don't want that in my life. And I think we all, like, we're coming from a similar, like, worldview, like most of us, right?
Yep.
There are people out there that this appeals to.
Yeah.
And that is scary to think that, like, there are people out there that, like, want this. They think that this is the correct conduit for, their feelings of loneliness and whatnot.
Yeah.
So.
Does it detect their voice, or like if you and I are having a conversation and you have it, will it? I'm wondering if it will detect my voice and then send you something about
about you.
Yeah.
Let me show you something on the website. So one of the functionality here is that it advertises. Oh gosh, where is it? Oh, come on. Oh yeah, here. Talk. Speak your mind or gossip about what your friend overheard. So it's encouraging gossiping. But the technology that you described, like based off of what I know in the AI field, like that exists. I don't know if it's incorporated into this product, but it's like detecting who is speaking, like for podcasting editing software, like it's perfect. Yeah. I don't know if it's in the product or not, but
it just like shows like just how lonely like people are and like how isolating it is. That like device is like making it very like they don't need anyone else. They just need their AI, and they might have a name for it. For their friend.
Yeah. So while it says friend right here, like the first friend's name was Amy, and then there was Jackson. And so there are actual names.
Oh, so that wasn't their name.
No.
You give it a name.
Okay.
Yeah, there was like only like I guess you can pick your name for it or.
Yeah, and that's interesting when we think about like naming things in Genesis. I don't know. Anyways.
One of the ironic things I find about this whole thing, at the same time, another person had also tried creating the exact same thing called Friend that was basically the same product. And this guy got $2 million of investor money to buy the domain name.
Yeah.
Friend.ai. And it caused a big, gigantic fight between these two people. So it was actively just destroying relationships. Like,
Oh, yeah.
no way.
That's ironic.
amazing.
That's ironic.
Yeah.
It's ironic. Yeah, I believe friend.com, they got like $5 million in funding and spent 1.2 on this domain name, but
Wow.
I don't remember. But yeah,
You got $5 million?
5 million in funding, at least so far, I think. But yeah, right now he's working on the packaging. But so okay.
Did you know friends come in the box?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, you can. It'll ship Q1 of 2025.
Wait, so how did you come across this though?
How did I come across this? I came across it. I get an AI newsletter that like keeps me up to date on the latest tech, and this is part of it.
Heard it from my AI friend.
Heard it from this buddy. All right. Yeah.
And he thinks you were
All right. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to continue now. So I think the most important reason why this relationship can't reflect the Trinity in the framework I described is because this AI does not have a subjective experience, doesn't have a consciousness. The electrical operations through transistors on a cluster of graphics cards do not produce a subjectivity. There is no what is it like to be an AI, just like there is no what is it like to be a rock or what is it like to be Nat. No, anyways, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. I love you, Dad. I love you, Dad. Where was I? Okay, because there's no subjectivity, there's no receiving of love and there's no giving of love. And so think about the cycle I was describing earlier between two entities. That's not happening. That's not happening. Rather, when you're talking to an AI, in terms of the relationship that's actually going on, it's a relationship with yourself. It's self-contained. So the reciprocal cycle I described earlier is impossible because there's only one subjectivity involved. Part of loving other people is trying to understand where they're coming from, how they're feeling, how what we say and do makes them feel, how it should make them feel, the things that we can do to make their lives better, and resisting doing what we know can make their lives worse, as tempting as it may be when we're mad at them. And this is a constant process because we can never fully know what it's like to be someone. We always have a perspective of our own that we view things through. And the other person doesn't have that lens, and so we can't know what it's like to be them because we're necessarily us. We cannot only look inside of ourselves to understand others. Okay. And so it's another thing about this talking to God phenomenon is that they're echoes of omnipresence, I feel, when I observe this product. And the always listening and always present. Now, there are many different ways that God can be present in our lives. I just went to a talk with the Thomistic Institute that went over 4 different ways, of which I cannot coherently describe. But the idea that God is always with us and we are never truly alone, I think is a big idea. And so when Avi Schiffman says, friend is an expression of how lonely I felt, well, it's an interesting question of should we ever actually feel lonely, right? And this is interesting because on the one hand, indeed God is with us. Hopefully we feel his presence, and he's there for us. And perhaps for many, to what extent is this enough? Even though we are indeed called to be with other people. But suppose you're I don't know, you're sick and you have to just be at home by yourself for a week. Should you feel lonely? I don't know. I'm still parsing that one out. But I think this what Avi might be referring to more is this constant sense of loneliness, this loneliness that one might feel even though they're around other people, to still feel isolated in the presence of others. And I feel where this comes from is not loving God first, because if indeed we love God and then that love overflows into our other relationships, then that's how to not feel lonely. But what this product is attempting to do is be a substitute for God, in that we might place this love, and any feeling associated with love, perhaps there are multiple kinds of loves, onto this artificial intelligence, and that will somehow be satisfying. Because if it's an expression of loneliness, well, the idea, I think, with this product is to have a product to make you not feel lonely anymore. And so therefore, you're putting these emotions onto the AI. But the AI can never really give you anything back. It's still self-contained. You might have desires to not feel lonely, to have a connection with another person. And, other people are other people. They have free will. Maybe they just don't want to be around you, right? And so you can try to interact with them, but you might, maybe you don't get anything back. And so you might turn to this AI. But, the AI is always going to talk to you, because if it didn't, then you don't have much of a product. And you buy this thing, and it's just it won't text me back. Even the AI. Oh, something's really wrong with me. So, probably a viable product for the non-masochists out here are going to respond, but it's an empty way, because there is no choice. Despite the marketing we have here, there is no free will in this AI. And so when talking about other people, there's always a part of another person that you can't control. You could ring somebody up with a marionette and control all of their physical movements. Maybe you even have some kind of brain stimulation to get them to think a certain way even. But at the end of the day, there's always a part of a person that you will be unable to control, that always has this free will, and it's part of their soul, right? And so when talking about an AI, any appearance of free will is pre-programmed in. It's pre-programmed in the sense that any appearance of choice was already determined beforehand. There's no active choice being made in the moment. It's either preset by the person who's using it. Maybe they can say, oh, don't always respond immediately, make me wait 20 minutes kind of thing. Or it could be the creator doing some kind of what would be unpredictable reinforcement to get you to use the product more and more, right? Such that when you can't predict it, there's something about the unpredictability of it that makes it more enticing. And so, because this is the case, you're never looking outward when you're talking with an AI. And remember, when we are loving God, it's that looking outward to, we love God, and this causes us, and the action of looking outward then to have relationships with other people is what makes that relationship triune. And so to get past the self-contained dyad, we indeed have to look outward. And with an AI, you can't look outward, even if it says everything right. And so a question we might want to ask ourselves is, can a relationship with an AI prepare us for the eternal marriage-like relationship with God? And I think because it's a self-contained thing, the answer is no. When we're engaging with this AI, we look to it to receive something that we think we would not otherwise receive. Because I don't think this is anyone's first choice. I don't think this is top of oh man, relationships I wish I could have with that AI, that'd be great. Because I think that there's a part of us in our creation that's it's woven into us, this desire for God, this desire for interacting with something real. And I think that's in everyone, and it can't be ignored. There's this idea of that I think we should have for God, and that I think God has for us in terms of fully giving oneself to God, this desire for possession, for someone to be everything. The proper place for this emotion is God. And I feel like if this technology gets better and better, it's going to get better at emulating what a person looks like. You'll be able to, talk to a video of a person. It'll say things sounding exactly like a person saying, and it's going to say exactly what keeps you interested in talking to it. And so, as this technology gets better and better, the idea of placing one's eros, and we're not talking about simple sexual tension, we're talking about this desire for someone to be everything in this possession, I feel is a particular danger with this artificial intelligence, because it is something you can control. It's in that device. It's right there. You can turn it on and off. You can completely restrict where it's going. And if you don't like what it's saying, you can program it so it does something different. The creators of this, I think, want AI to be everything. But it necessarily can't be, because in reality, there is no relationship happening. And I think that's the biggest takeaway from this, that when we think about the relationships we have in our lives, we're indeed talking with other people, right? There is a subjectivity, even though we can't observe it, that we're interacting with, that we're having an impact on that many of us don't know that we're having. I mean, people have come up to me 3 years after I've said something to them, it's like, no, I remember when you like told me that thing that one time. It was like super, like changed my life. And I was just like, bro, I just thought of that like off the top of my head. Like, I don't know, man. And I'm not saying this happens like all the time. It just happened like once or twice. But like, surely this has happened. Like, I'm sure every single one of you has said something to this effect, and probably just like the person that it impacted didn't tell. They just haven't told you. And so relationships are either real or not. They're not just in our head. And it's this looking outward and trying to take the perspective of another that is what makes our relationships triune. It's what allows us to actually reflect the Trinity. And so I think as we like go outward and as we like talk amongst ourselves after this talk, let's keep in mind that as we're talking with this other person, that, you know, a real relationship is there. You know, we're not just talking with ourselves. It's not all just happening in our head. There's something between us, and there's someone out there in our presence. Thank you very much. Thank you.